after scholarship in the last year alone. He has virtual scholarships to the National Archives of London. He's the National Central Library of Taiwan. So he also apparently knows how to fundraise. So we're going to be contacting him after this. And without further ado, no wait.
Eins, zwei, drei. Argentina is splendid, but, it's a patchwork of imprecise data. Who is indigenous and who is pretending to be indigenous? National statistics are generally altered for ideological, political, and economic interest. With this malicious tangle of data, where and how many square kilometers should be managed by native communities. The issue is hampered when the claimant being national territories are in Argentina, Chile, and Patagonia. Despite using the same language, public policies are disparate. Data tampering is grotesque. There are hundreds of fake identity cards and passports. These transnational Amerindian people manage from clandestine information channels in gray, lawless areas. At the legal level, they create social cooperation with the assumptions of social justice for Mapuche rights. However, the sensitive information that has linked a millionaire businesses in mind, which is far from the indigenous for view. Banking information on the zone is opaque. Large transfer from men and foreign currency incoming through collapses customs. Extensive illegal borders, which makes them porous and vulnerable. In summary, many more square kilometers are at stake the entire Republic of Cuba. Argentine sovereignty is at risk.
And any questions we're going to save for the end. So next up, we have Chasz Griego from Carnegie Mellon, and he's going to be talking about integrating and evaluating best practices in research reproducibility at CMU. He is an open science postdoc associate. He leads and supports open science teaching and research initiatives, particularly in the areas of reproducibility and computational research. His research involves investigating how open tools help promote reproducibility with computational research. He supports students and researchers with Python programming for data science applications, literate programming with Jupyter Notebooks, and version control with GitHub. This summer, he will move to a new role, but he's staying at Carnegie Mellon, but as an engineering librarian where he will support engineering researchers while still making efforts for open science and reproducibility.
Thank you. Yeah, as mentioned, I'll be transitioning to an engineering liaison librarian role because I suppose open science postdoctoral associate was a little too attention grabbing. But I'd like to thank IASIST and everyone for being here and having a platform for me to speak. So just to start with open science, as many of us know, 2023 is the year of open science, with the OSTP producing a standard definition for open science, which is the principle and practice of making research products and processes available to all while respecting diverse cultures, maintaining security and privacy, and fostering collaborations, reproducibility, and equity. And as we can see, there are many things that the umbrella in open science encompasses and many practices, and it's maybe a difficult field to navigate. And something that's new and unique and great at Carnegie Mellon University is we have a dedicated program called the Open Science and Data Collaborations Program. And this is composed of many employees at the library who are here to highlight the services that the library already offers that aligns with open science, but also advocate practices to those who are interested or those who are in need. And in the past, we've done many things like holding events. We have several academic licenses to tools for users to use, and we also advocate and teach others how to use these tools through various workshops, carpentries training, data office hours, and of course we also have collaborations, and we're constantly assessing this program and this initiative. And so in my role, I had the privilege to be able to study what this program is doing, and a big thing that was interesting to me was reproducibility and how, open science can directly impact that. And so, of course, a reproducibility crisis does exist, and as research, especially computational research, is becoming more complex, it's becoming more difficult for others to share and reproduce this work. And for this short talk, I'm just going to be talking about computational reproducibility, so projects that are simply done on computers. And so here is a nice quick definition for computational reproducibility: obtaining consistent computational results using the same input data, computational steps, methods, code, and conditions of analysis. And so we can see that there is, a big convenience now with research being done on computers, but there are a lot of challenges. It's not as simple as copying and sharing things over to others so that they can use what you have, produce the same results. There's a lot of intricacies. And so something that I was interested in pursuing in this role was evaluating tools that lead to reproducibility. And so we can think about a research publication and the different components that can lead to this publication being more reproducible, or the products of this research. The methods can be more descriptive, the data can be findable and accessible, the software environments can be preserved, where when sharing we know details of dependencies and versions, and of course the publications can be, or the research can be created through collaborative tools and platforms. And so through our Open Science Initiative, we have several tools and resources to match these criteria. We have our institutional repository, KiltHub. We provide users academic licenses to protocols.io so they can make detailed, reproducible protocols and procedures for their studies. While this isn't specific to CMU, CodeOcean is a great platform that that's accessible to academic users for producing reproducible computational environments, and the Open Science Framework for a collaborative project management platform. And so when I started in my role, I became aware of these tools, and something that I was interested in was, can we measure the way that these tools can promote reproducibility? And so this led me to thinking about ideas of some type of participant-based study where we can have people attempt to reproduce things and see if these tools facilitate that. And so this is a work in progress. This is very conceptual, and what I'd like to do is just talk about an idea for a study that will be coming up in the near future. So this will be a participant-based study, as I said, and there will be a control group and an experimental group. In both of these groups, they'll be given some illustrative research sample, nothing too complicated. And in the control group, they'll be given raw outputs of this research, such as raw data and code, something maybe just thrown on a GitHub repository, and they kind of have to figure out how to use it themselves. And with this material, they'll be tasked to reproduce some results from this sample. And we'll be looking at things like, were they successful, were they not, how accurate were the results that are reproduced, and if they weren't successful, what challenges did they face along the way? If they were able to reproduce the results and use these materials, could they then produce new results by maybe tweaking parameters in the study? And then again, ask the same questions. Were they successful or not? What happened? On the other side will be the more experimental side, where they will be given research outputs to the same research sample prepared with these open science, open research tools, such as those listed here. And again, they'll be asked to reproduce results. Were they successful? Were they not? What challenges? And then again, were they able to produce new results from this study? And overall, were they able to extend the overall findings of this sample of research? And by having a group of many participants, were we able to get many aspects of information? And also along the way, participants will be uploading these materials to Open Science Framework so they can collaborate and peer review each other's work. And so I'm really excited to implement this, and I feel very positive, and the hypothesis of the study is that these open platforms will facilitate reproducibility and reusability. And so that's coming in the near future. There's a lot of coordination to be able to do this, but we will be piloting this through an undergraduate course this summer, coming up in about a week and a half. This is through a series called Collaborative Research Through Projects. And so we'll be giving undergraduate students who are new to research access to these tools, and they'll learn how to use them. And alongside what they will be learning is they'll be learning basics of research, the scientific method, and alongside learning all of these components, they will be learning about the reproducible practices that you can choose along the way. And to apply what they learn, they're going to be able to attempt to reproduce results, and they're going to do something similar to the study I had outlined in the previous slide. And this will help us learn if this is an appropriate way to go about this, but also these students are going to get hands-on knowledge and learning what kind of challenges you can face when you grab research from anywhere and try to reproduce it. And they're also going to learn how to conduct their own experiments from these samples and be able to produce these products using these tools. And so this is all coming up, really excited about it. And with that, I would just like to say thank you and to stay tuned. Hopefully in the coming years, I'll have some exciting results to share all with you. Thank you again, ISS, for giving me this platform. And I'd just love to acknowledge all of the other members, part of the Open Science Initiative at CMU.
So next up is Negeen, Aghassibake, and you're going to have to correct. I'm a last-minute fill-in, so I didn't get to find out how to correctly pronounce. My apologies. But she's from University of Washington, and she's going to be talking about data management and care. She's the data visualization librarian at the University of Washington, and she has an MS in information studies from the University of Texas at Austin.
I've never felt shorter, yeah. Thank you so much for that introduction. So today I'll be proposing a reframing of how we talk about research data management in academic libraries. And I want to warn that this is really just a seed of an idea at the moment. I'm still thinking about what this means and what this might look like in practice. And it's not revolutionary, but I'm hoping that it changes how we work, at least just a little bit. So just some really quick context so you know where I'm coming from. I work at a large academic library at a state institution in the United States. It's a predominantly white institution, and a lot of researchers receive grants from federal funders, state funders, nonprofits, et cetera. So I share this just to say that I have a limited context, and I'm coming in with my own personal experience and viewpoints, so I'm sure RDM can look very different in different contexts. I'll also say in the next few minutes, I'm focusing specifically on human subjects research. But in my experience, I've noticed some things, and primarily that a lot of research data management services and libraries tend to focus on researchers primarily, and by extension, the institutions that they're affiliated with. And really, the needs of the researchers and the institutions often come first, right? So grant requirements, such as the new NIH policies, and really compliance and liability, which puts the institution at the center and protects the institution and researchers first. And I thought, maybe this is just my experience, maybe this is not reality, so I looked through some library guides at different academic institutions similar to the one that I work at, and although I won't mention specific ones here, I really looked for ones that ask the question, why do I need a data management plan? Why should I care about this? How does this apply to me? And the answers did vary somewhat, but primarily they focused on two themes, which are that they are required for funders or for grant applications, and that it saves the researcher time and resources. And again, by extension, the institution time and resources. Some of them did mention data sharing, transparency, and reproducibility, but they were largely secondary to the funder requirements and saving time and resources. What seems to be missing for me, though, from these conversations and from these resources are the people. And by people, I mean the people who actually show up in the data, right? People who may have contributed their personally identifiable information, they might have shared private or sensitive information, again, really for the benefit, often, of the researcher, and the institutions. And poor data management practices that might lead to a breach or some other loss of data that gets out there primarily harms those people, especially people who are in underrepresented groups. So this is my proposal. And again, it's a little squishy, not totally fleshed out yet, but I'm gonna test it out here, so thank you all. I'm very grateful to you all listening, and maybe tell me if you love it, hate it, think it's a terrible idea, think it's the best idea you ever heard. All of that is welcome. But I'm proposing that we shift to talking about research data management practices that prioritize care for the research participants who contribute their time and energy and information to the research and to the institutions, and really reframing RDM services and libraries to focus on the people and share and show research data management as an act of care rather than just as an obligation or as a responsibility or some other way to continue to protect really wealthy, high-resource institutions. And really this is a goal, my goal is to shift our values. So I know that I'm mostly only sharing problems, which is just what you want on like a Friday afternoon at the end of a conference, and I'm not really offering a ton of solutions, but maybe this can be a start to this conversation. I also recognize it doesn't solve all issues around research data management, and liability issues are still really critical, but I think it's important to shift our values to center communities and people in the data rather than the researchers and the institutions. There's still a lot to talk about too, and I think conversations around IRBs, compliance, community engaged methodologies, data governance, and more broadly trust and power dynamics in research can really make this conversation even richer. So thank you, and again, if you agree or very much disagree or sort of fall somewhere in the middle, please reach out because I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you.
So with our next two speakers, we triple the Czech membership of ASEP, so this is really thrilling. So we have two speakers for our next group. We have Rudolf Sýkora, and we have Jindřich Fejfar, and they are both from the library of the Czech Academy of Sciences. Rudolf works as the institutional repository administrator at the institution I just said. Prior to his current position, he worked at the library at the Institute of International Relations, the Hun Pollock Library at the Faculty of Arts, Charles University, and the National Technical Library. And then his co-presenter, Jindřich, works as the Open Science Coordinator at the same institution. Prior to his current position, he worked as research and development in the Research and Development Unit at the Czech Ministry of Labor and Social Affairs, or Evaluation Unit of the Agency for Social Inclusion.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for the introduction. Again, we are Jindřich Fejfar and Rudolf Sýkora from the Czech Academy of Sciences, and we would like to talk about Czech Academy of Sciences, our library, about our institutional repository and about the changes in the data storage in the repository. So let's start with an introduction of Czech Academy of Sciences. Czech Academy of Sciences is a network of 54 public research institutions in the Czech Republic. We are basically the largest network of research institutions in the country. Our institutes are conducting research in all the fields of the science, from life sciences to humanities, or also social sciences, of course. Our library, it's supporting all the institutes of the Czech Academy of Sciences. We provide library services, information services, digitalization services, and last but not least, we also manage institutional repository and bibliographic database ASEP. So, and to know in more detail about our bibliographic database and repository, so database ASEP, which was in the beginning the bibliographic database only, exists since 1993, and from 2012 it's also possible to store the full text of the publications in the repository, and from 2018 we have also a data repository. I think our data repository complies quite good with FAIR principles. We have metadata description of each data record. Each record has a persistent identifier, DOI. So, and my colleague will tell you more about changes in the storage and full text repository.
So here you can see usage of full ASEP full text repository, and the graph is based on the data from content server. So it's represent the uploads during the time, and we offer 3 options of access to the uploaded full text. One, like the blue one, is the archive. It's not accessible for the public, and you can see the sharp increase in 2014, 15, and 2020, and it's connected to the end of the evaluation period, which is necessary for evaluation of institutes and each of the researchers. So the other options are not changing much, but we are expecting the changes in the future, because there was some implementation of new European Union directive of open access and reproducibility of public information, and so definitely there will be another wave, because it's ending the evaluation, next evaluation period is at the end almost, so it's the reason. There you can see the usage of ASEP data repository. It's not used much, but it's important to say that it's just the data which are not disseminated through domain-specific repositories. So it's like we are catching the rest for the institutes and domains which doesn't have the domain-specific repository. And the usage, as you saw on the previous graph, and in this one, it's vary mostly by the external inputs, like the internal policies of the institutes. Some of the institutes are publishing and uploading the full text and the data to the repositories. Some of them not, and we can see it in the data, in the evidence of the usage of the repository. So it's all from me.
Okay. So we are in the end. So conclusion. So based on my colleague said, we can predict that we can predict that we will have sharp increase in stored data sets. Probably it will be this year, and I think it will be even a sharper increase of full text of stored data sets than was in the case of full text repository. So
It become mandatory to disseminate data sets. So like next year it will start be much more.
yeah, there will be implementation of European legislation in Czech law system. So we could predict that we will finally have use for our data repository. So okay. So thank you very much for your attention.
And our final speaker is virtual, and I'm not seeing anything, but hopefully I haven't had a panic look from the back, so I'm assuming this is good. But our final speaker is Katrin Henzel. She's at the Kiel University Library, and her talk is going to be on Towards an Inclusive RDM in Germany. She's a staff member of the Research Data Management Digital Humanities team, Kiel University Library. She co-chairs Go Unite working group, Inclusion in RDM, and Go Unite is the German chapter of the Data Stewardship Competence Center's implementation network within the International Go Fair initiative. So my friend in the back is now going to switch her over, and there she is.
Hello, everybody. I hope you can hear me. Thank you for a kind introduction, for the opportunity to present our work at this conference. My co-speaker, Monika Linne, unfortunately cannot be present as she started her new job yesterday, but she sends her best regards. Who are we? We are members of the working group Inclusive RDM that belongs to Go Unite, as you already said, the German chapter of Go Fair, an international initiative to implement the FAIR principles in research infrastructures. Our working group was initiated last autumn because the topic of data accessibility for people with disabilities has received only little consideration within research data management in Germany so far. This is somewhat surprising since the legal framework provides clear guidelines for digital accessibility in Germany. I've listed the most important laws and regulations for this. Article 9 of the CRPD requires national states to provide, promote, and ensure access to information and communications technologies and systems for every person. At the European level, there is the European Accessibility Act, which will be implemented in Germany in 2025. Since 2011, there has been the Barrier-Free Information Technology Ordinance, BITV, which, like its European legal model, implements the internationally binding web content accessibility guidelines in Germany. There are also tools that can be used in testing digital accessibility. So why is there a need for action here? The biggest challenge is surely the lack of awareness. We want to make digital accessibility of data an item that appears in the checklist of every research project. Verifying accessibility through tools requires time and expertise, both of which are not yet considered in the German research landscape. We see it as the task of research data managers to eliminate this deficit by developing and offering materials and consulting services for digital accessibility. Second, there are often problems in implementing digital accessibility because automated or semi-automatic approaches using tools are not sufficient here. We also need supplementary qualitative test procedures that can identify subjectively perceived barriers. This applies in particular to the third principle of the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, that is comprehensibility, navigation, and orientation on websites, also and especially on graphical user interfaces of data repositories. We are convinced that participatory approaches are needed that actively involve the community. We see cooperation with expert groups also to get trained continuously. Thus, we also want to create more awareness among ourselves, as inclusivity is a dynamic and ongoing process. A first little success of our working group was the submission of a position paper on the Research Data Act to be introduced in Germany. We even made it to the first place on the list, as you can see on the slide. What are our medium-term goals? Whereas the left part of the data lifecycle mostly benefits from digital accessibility assessment tools, much empirical work remains to be done for the stages of the right part of the cycle, particularly in the composition of research teams, also in data collection and analysis. A greater awareness of the issue of disability must be created. It is also important, for example, to make metadata readable for all and to agree on data formats that can be used by all. Making data accessible can only succeed through bottom-up efforts and an iterative data management. We are very interested in networking with other projects and working groups to mutually benefit from each other. For this purpose, we've listed our contact details on the slide. Thank you very much for your attention.
Oh, you have control in the back, sorry. Okay, so rather than one of us breaking our neck on the little steps, I'm just going to stand here. So first, Paul, my tech person, are there any questions in the Q&A from our virtual audience? No. All right, so let's open it up. Any questions? And remember, you do have to be on the mic. So Sebastian.
Yay for lightning talks. I have a question for Chasz. It's kind of a twofold question. One question is, if you're only talking about computational reproducibility, why do you need anything beyond CodeOcean? Because that's computational reproducibility in a container on the click of a button. That's number one. And in terms of your research design, I'm wondering how you're going to select projects that are credibly fair, because I could pretty certainly pick a project that would either give you a 0 result or give you a very strong effect with very little effort on my part.
Yeah, those are both really great questions. For your first question, that's actually something that I've been concerned about, is CodeOcean pretty much has it all. It has data, and in theory, if you're running something in something like a Jupyter notebook, you have it all step by step. And so this is kind of something which leads a little bit into your question, is this is going to be very iterative to think about what type of applications of like a project can we use to be able to test this. Something that, you know, I don't want to put biases into what we test. So something that incorporates enough challenges but also calls for the other tools. So maybe something to access another data set from a repository, or just trying to simulate different situations of how someone might manage or share their research products. So those are really great questions, and those are the kind of questions I'm looking for in talking about this, and so I really appreciate it, and hopefully we can work things out iteratively and try to manage these things.
Do we have other questions?
Hi, this is Linne Argabright from UNC Wilmington. I have a question for Negeen, who I've heard some of your other workshops, and I just think you're fabulous. So I hope to talk to you in the future. But anyway, so in reframing RDM from a more ethical perspective, how could you sort of make sure that in your explanation, they don't the researchers don't just think that it's the same thing as an IRB application?
Yeah, thanks for that question. And to be honest, I'm not sure yet. And I think that's something that, you know, will come up. I'm certain that no matter how you frame it, some people will interpret it as just another IRB question. But I do wonder if there are, and if anyone like has some things to share, I would appreciate hearing about it. Like examples of where IRB was not enough, right? Where like someone did followed it, and yet there was still harm. So I guess the short answer is I don't know yet, sorry, but hopefully that's something we can all talk about and figure out.
Other questions? I have a question for our Czech team. So currently you have a relatively small number of data sets. I know there's much more on the tech side. For the metadata, and I don't mean like down to the variable level, but just for the very basic things like title and so forth, are you providing any metadata in a language that is not Czech? So German, English, something that's, I'm sorry, I'm holding the mic.
Yeah, it's on a depositor, but we usually encourage depositors of data sets to write all the metadata in English. Or at least we have some mandatory fields which are English translations. So they could write metadata in Czech, but they have to have at least description of the data set in English. So that's it.
Yeah, and that, you know, I mean, for people like me who are very language challenged to begin with, you know, it really does increase because I find often, you know, my job is guiding people to, I then say, look, I don't know a word of Czech or Japanese or whatever it is, but hopefully you can find someone, but at least to be able to guide them to it. And I'm reminded in a presentation yesterday that Anya Perry did about findability and so forth. And Tomas, I don't know if you were at that session. Yeah, you were. But like Finland ranked above everybody else. And, you know, if you think about, I mean, Finnishes, if it was just in Finnish, we were probably not getting that. But again, so Tomas is doing something really good. So, you know, talk to each other, ways to improve even further. Any other questions? Paul, anything new? I see Kevin, our program chair, has.
Thank you. Kevin Manuel, Toronto Metropolitan University. My question's for Noé. Is Indigenous identity included in the census of Argentina?
There are many items in the sense. And there are many items for gender and identity too. Ambos them, this conference, the conference, the Indigenous and identity. Yes. Yes.
Any others? Before we move forward to what we've been waiting for, the closing ceremony. All right, if you've seen the Olympics, you've seen nothing. So Robin, how's that for pressure?
Hello. Lowering that. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody, for staying to this point of the conference. And for those who like ISS traditions, we still have a couple more for you. Gosh, we have learned so much over these 5 days and been inspired by one another. We've been hearing how the ethics of data collection and data use cuts so many ways. And the beauty of our theme, diversity in research, social justice from data, this year was to focus on how our knowledge and actions as data professionals can make the difference of equity, dignity, and inclusion for people who might otherwise be marginalized or underrepresented or made vulnerable. We've learned to notice what and who is not present in the data, and that working with data is an act of power. Thank you, Scout, if you're still here. And metadata, which sometimes seems like quite a lowly activity, making metadata. It's powerful too, because it involves naming. So we learn to wield this power with care, sensitivity, and a spirit of inclusiveness. And that turns out to be a great segue for me to go ahead and thank the program chairs this year for coming up with this theme and coming up with all this content for us. So thank you very much. So San has arranged for a thank you present to the obligatory tote bag for Kevin Manuel and Anya Perry. Thank you very much. And as you know, we had a different kind of local arrangements committee this year, but we have thank yous also. So I would like to thank Dr. Linda Kellum, Ryan Womack, Babre Bordelon, and also thank you to the people we've been working with at Concentra. Oh, I'm sorry. Olivia, thank you very much for all of your help with the local arrangements. I must have written that on a different page. And very many thanks to our newest past president, Dr. San Cannon. So I think you all can agree, we have just had the best conference ever, the best IAssist ever, and with that, we're going to segue again to our Judith Rowe tribute, which Babre will deliver.
So how many of you actually know where the phrase, the best IAssist ever, comes from? Robin, few people, very few. So Judith Rowe, who died on her birthday last year, many, many conferences ago, decades ago. And so Judith, just to give you, and I'll tell you more about her in a moment, but Judith was 4'10" on a good day, but had this very, very loud voice. And apparently at a conference, you know, she generally meant and said this was the best ISIS ever, and the following year was the best ISIS ever. And after a while, they would have her close every conference with the best ISIS ever. So who was Judith Rowe, for those of you that do not know? So ISIS was next year is our 50th anniversary as an organization. We know, yes, this is the 48th conference because it took a little while to put on a conference, so we're going to have 2 parties in a row. But just to say, ISIS came out of the American Sociological Association. Judith and a bunch of others would sit in the back. They would discuss data while others talked about other things, and they decided, let's have an organization to talk about all the many issues that we talk about today. So she was a founding member. She was one of the early presidents. She served from 85 to 88. I came to Princeton in 1993. I had met her at my previous job at New Mexico State. I was shocked beyond belief when I arrived at Princeton, and she remembered me from the zillion people she had met at a conference that ICPSR was doing. But she founded Data and Statistical Services at Princeton and had that position until her retirement. She served on council, but most important, I think, is that she was the first person ever that was not a faculty member who was elected to. Before that, it was all, you know, politics professors, sociology professors, etc., and she came from our world. She held many positions over time, including ones in the Association of Public Data Users, COPAFs. Oh, this way. All right. Sorry. So I think I went too many. Okay. I went too many. All right, that's okay. She received the ISIS Achievement Award in 2000, and with that, we saw Karsten received it earlier this previous week. She won the William Flanagan Award for distinguished services as an ICPSR official representative. She was given a certificate by the federal government for all of her work in depository programs. Let me also mention Judith was not a librarian, but did all the work that she received the highest honor that GODART, the Government Documents Roundtable, gave. Some of the things that she's most noticed for, but is she lobbied constantly for better government statistical reporting. Many of you may have heard the story. We have the 1960 census today, microdata, because of Judith. Princeton had kept a copy. Nobody else had. We couldn't get the national, well, I had nothing to do with it, I wasn't born, but nonetheless. Judith, but everybody kept asking. The National Archives wouldn't do anything. ICPSR, which was also a young organization, wasn't doing anything. Judith would send out boxes of punch cards to people, and she finally got tired of doing this. And she says, you know, it's the job of the National Archives and so forth to do this. So that copy was then sent. She was a very prolific author. She wrote many, many things. The United States has a system of state data centers. She was a pioneer in that creation of that. I'm just going to read a few quotes. So when she died last year, I got hundreds of quotes from people who had known her, and I want to just read a few of these. So Chuck Humphrey, one of our former presidents, he called her the Madeleine Albright of social science data. So Madeleine Albright, for those not from the US, she's a former Secretary of State who came from the Czech Republic. But she was the Madeleine Albright of social science data. She created opportunities for women in the data world that were seen as the domain of male political scientists in the 60s and 70s. She was a role model for a new generation of male data librarians and archivists about the importance of respecting others regardless of academic status. Anne Green, another former ISIS president. For decades, we would seek out her advice and counsel in setting up and growing data archives and data services around the world. In meetings and at conferences, we would look forward to her insightful summary of presentations and her articulate criticism of something off track. Her intellect and humor were sharp, creative, and powerfully analytical. We have lost a bright light. But from the foundation, she helped build the vision she articulated, and her impact undoubtedly continues. Peter Burnhill, and there's a picture of him there, former United Kingdom Data Archive. He said that she will be remembered fondly for her kindness and feisty good humor, as well as her wisdom and profound contributions to the work of data professionals. David Card, who used to be at Princeton, now at UC Berkeley, but who won the Nobel Prize last year for economics, called her a force of nature. Alana Ionescu, who is retired from UC Berkeley, you gave us so much. You led us from the beginning, and we will always benefit from what you helped create. Myron Gutman, former ICPSR director. When I arrived at Princeton as a very green beginning graduate student in 1971, for some reason, Judith Rowe was one of the first people I met, and she quickly became a friend, guide, mentor, and teacher, and arranged for Sonia Sotomayor to keep punch my dissertation data. So again, for those of you that are not US, Sonia Sotomayor is currently one of the justices on the Supreme Court. And there was a beautiful memorial service for Judith last year, and all these people are calling in, and all of a sudden there's a voice, and she says, hello, this is Sonia, and she's talking about how wonderful, and then Judith's son interrupted and said, just in case anyone does not know, this is Sonia, as in Sonia Sotomayor. So my joke is when I started my freshman year at Louisiana State University in 1984, and it was the very end of the punch cards days. I typed zeros and ones for 2 days, and I quit. And I thought, if only I had kept to it, I could be on the Supreme Court. Anne Gray, who followed Judith at Princeton, formerly at Cornell, she's now retired. ICE exists today because of Judith. She made those guys understand that the social sciences needed a scientific grounding that required sharing of data resources. Thanks for this vision, and thanks for Judy, who persevered. Paula Lackey, who is in the room with us from Carleton College. It is from the work of Judith that we can see the foundation for open science in an environment of collaboration. I don't think that Judith thought she was a pioneer when she was working on all these important organizational principles. She told me that she was just trying to make data useful. She saw the future. And my last quote, Lina Roos, also retired, also an Achievement Award winner from the University of Toronto, one of the pillars of our profession, a giant on whose shoulders I was privileged to stand from our first meeting at, I believe, the first ICPSR Data Library Workshop in July of 1974 to our last encounter at an ISIS conference, obviously the best one ever. Judith was always generous with insights, advice, and fresh perspectives. And there's a beautiful site for Judith. I don't know how you go back. Okay, I realize I skipped. How do I go back on this? Can you go back? Okay, so I skipped over 2 pictures that I wanted to show on the slide. One more. One more. All right, one more. All right, I guess it's at the beginning. You love the wrong one? All right, one more maybe? Okay, never mind. Anyway, my apologies. Somewhere in this, there are 2 wonderful pictures, but it had Judith and Karsten that Robin and Paula found. Couple for it. All right. There's no. Yes. So in the corner, okay, I didn't skip. So in the corner, Judith and Carson, and as I said, Carson just won the Achievement Award, and Judith is a former Achievement Award. So again, if you go into the literature and so forth, you will see Judith's name a lot. And again, she was really a pioneer of what we consider open science today. And so thank you for listening about one of my mentors, Judith. And now we're going to go on to other things. And so next up is the really fun part, led by the fabulous Paula Lackey.
Is this advancing?
Yes, the green button.
But he's going to set it up, yeah? We're ready, folks. So this is a recap, everybody. That's Temple. First picture was, I think, we started somewhere, didn't we? We all started somewhere. Started with a Chep Rider. We went through workshops. Can you remember Tuesday? Is that 6 years ago? Whew. How many of you saw the book bot? This baby's intense. And then we went to the reception. These are not in order, by the way. Reception was pretty eye-opening and wonderful, and we got to see each other. We got to see a lot of each other. Meeting new folks, meeting old folks, coming back together again. All these pictures are going to be available. Where's the music? We got music, man. There we go. Okay. Hopefully you'll see in yourselves, in all of us, happy faces, even serious faces. We're all trying to pull it together. What can we do as a group? There's a lot of people actually in this room right now who have a new awareness or perhaps a renewed awareness of the diversity of the content that we're dealing with. And we're not alone. Even though when we go to our institutions, many of us are the only ones there. This is a place where you can find your people. I love that one. Looks like Bob's jumping through a window. Struggle is real, folks. And we did talk a lot, and I'm really pleased with how much dialogue was going on. You guys were super engaged. How many of you, are you getting flashbacks? I hope so. Should be getting some kind of flashbacks. Oh yeah, the news hub, that was cool, right? And folks online, I don't know if you're online now, but you're here, somehow. Treasurer's report's green, did you notice? Totally in the green. Yeah, they're going through kind of fast, but there's a lot of us. Fireside, okay, we're back to the beginning. Welcome reception, fireside, second day keynote. There's a lot, that one just got weird. There we go, it's a little better, but he's still blue. The boat ride was good. For those of you who couldn't make it, I'm sorry. It was lovely, breezy, fresh. For all the rest of us, it was fun, wasn't it? Good air. There we got a book butt on a big scale. Burning. That's the United States. That's the USS United States, by the way. It looks a little bedraggled. Way to nail it. IAssist was here for sure. Free the data, everybody. Not all of the work happens in these rooms. A lot of the work happens in the hallways, over the meals, over all of our social events. Kind of going back in time. The president's presidenting. The First Amendment and the next president, or the current president, rather. Does anybody know what the attendance count was? Okay, we're starting over. So this is the story, folks. We're going to let that just keep going, I think. We can hand off the absolute closing. I think that's where we are, yeah? Is that all right if we just let those go? Let them, because they flip through fast? Okay, great.
Thank you, Paula. So that is another one of the great IAssist traditions, at least while we have Paula doing that. And now, very exciting IAssist tradition will be introduced by Jane Fry. We have a different presentation for this.
So there's going to be some slides coming up here, and I want to first say that Dylan Dearmorn from U of T is the one who's supposed to be standing up here now, but hopefully she'll be at the airport by now to be able to catch her flight at 4. So I am a last-minute stand-in. Now, the second thing I want to say is I'm going to be announcing the location for next year's IASIST, which will be the best IASIST ever. However, if you already know the location, and I know some of you in the room here do know the location, please keep it to yourselves so that others can look at the pictures and try and figure it out. That's right, Paul, just do that. Isn't that a tradition? More lobster.
Any corporate sponsors wanting to sponsor a lobster dinner, you are most welcome.
Talk to Roper, Bobbery. And there you go. Okay. Yeah. So I just have a few. Yeah. No, I just have a few talking points. I'm sorry. Yeah, no, that's okay. You can stay up here. You can encourage everyone to come too. So, Halifax, Nova Scotia. It's a hop, skip, and a jump to PEI, New Brunswick, Quebec, and Newfoundland and Labrador for those who aren't sure about their geography. So you don't just have to come to Nova Scotia. There's lots of other places really close by you can go to. Also, it is an easy connection from Toronto and Montreal, and there are some international flights that do go to Halifax. The population size, in case you're wondering, because we're all into stats here, is about 480,000 at our last census in 2022, so you have an idea. It's not too large a city. And all pictures you saw are from the Discover Halifax website, and there's lots of local information there. One other little plug. As Bob already mentioned, it will be our 50th anniversary of IASIS next year, so there'll be a great celebration. Can't tell you anything yet, mainly because we haven't figured it out yet. But be sure and come, and that was all I wanted to say, Robin. No, that's it.
Okay, so you stay,
okay.
you stay up here, and our final IASIS tradition of the day, Linda knows what it is, and can we have any local arrangements, committee members from this year and next year that are in the room, please come up. And Kevin, too. It's the passing of the banner, folks. So next year is our 50th anniversary, we worked out, and it's the 49th conference. So we'll be able to celebrate 2 years in a row because it was formed at another conference, International Sociological something, in 1974. American Sociological Society? Association. Yes, it. Photo op.
All right, bye. Best IASIS ever. See ya. Safe travels.